The Commission for Gender Equality has added its voice to the outrage around the gruesome murder of 23-year-old final year law student Nosicelo Mtebeni. Her body was found dismembered in a suitcase in a suburb of East London. The Commission says it is saddened by the senseless murder, which adds to the list of gender-based violence and murders during Women's Month, and it will reach out to the leadership of the University of Fort Hare. Incidents of gender-based violence, including rape, continue to be alarmingly high. Releasing the crime stats for the first quarter of the year yesterday, Police Minister Quigney said 10,006 people were raped between April and June of this year. Now that is an increase of more than 72% compared to the previous reporting period. All sexual offences in the country recorded a significant increase. The number of attempted sexual offences increased by more than 13%. And other stats as well. Minister Quigney says the stats do need to be read in context, considering the abnormal changes caused by different lockdown levels. All right, to look at these shocking stats, we are joined by gender activist and CEO of Tekano Atlantic Fellowship Health Equity South Africa, Lebo Ramafoko. Mr. Ramafoko, thank you for being with us. Let's just look at the rape stats with an increase of more than 70%. It's already said that South Africa has one of the worst rates in the world. Are we heading now into realms that are just unbelievable?
Yeah, thank you for having me. We've always had very high stats. And I guess right now we are seeing almost the worst of what this country has become. But for every woman, recognizing that reported cases constitute only 25% of actual rapes. So it means that the number is actually 4 times higher. Yeah. So we are sitting with a pandemic that is greater in many instances than even the COVID-19 pandemic that we are dealing with.
I mean, let's try and make this simple. Does this make South Africa one of the most dangerous places to live in as a woman, if not the most dangerous in the world?
Without a doubt. South Africa has some of the highest rape statistics, higher even for countries that are at war. So in a lot of ways, we are seeing a civil war against women. And I think what we have seen in society is that some of these stats are normalized because there is still a belief that it is rape is perpetuated by men out there. And in fact, when you look at rape and sexual coercion, it is done by almost every man, because the norm that is out there is that you can force a woman to have sex, and the burden will be on the woman to prove that they did not, you did not rape them. And we also know that we've got social norms that basically support and perpetuate the belief that women are objects and therefore women can be treated in any way possible. And indeed, the lockdown, created a number of very undesirable circumstances for many women who were locked at home with their abusers.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask you to comment on what the police minister said, that this should be looked in the context of lockdowns and changing lockdowns. But it does show that women are raped by people they know. It's often said.
We've said that a number of times, and even men in our society would want to believe that it is other men other than themselves who rape. And at the very least, these statistics show that that is not correct, that these rapists live amongst us. These rapists are our brothers, our fathers, our husbands, respectable men. They are men all over the place. And it is when this conduct or this way of treating women is normalized in society, when apart from legal consequences, there are social consequences, for men who behave this way, where you see the statistics growing up. But I want to say this about what the comments of the Bigitele said. We have seen him during the lockdown, how he was almost figuratively beating on his chest around getting people who were violating the COVID regulations around alcohol. And we can say right now that reading the stats in one context or the other is not going to solve the problem. What the minister can tell us is that as a ministry and as this government, there is simply no plan and no answer to dealing with sexual assault in South Africa.
Yeah.
And I want to repeat, when the numbers represent only a quarter of the actual cases that take place, any other country, any other minister of police, any other presidency, heads should be rolling right now. Things should be happening. The fact that we need to understand it, almost as if the minister of police is telling women, well, what did you expect? Because you were home with men that we know are going to rape you.
Yeah, this is just so awful. The police have often said, they can't get into people's homes often. And police, what goes on sometimes between a husband and wife. This is a society-wide issue. And surely it is. If you have almost 1,000 youngsters between the age of 10 and 12 giving birth in the last year. And I mean, dealing with society, where do you start?
Well, I think there's many places in which you can start. I mean, I think we, as South Africa, are not bringing to book a lot of some of the perpetrators of this violence. Firstly, one of the things that make women in their majority not report these cases is how they are treated. The lack of support for even the women who have reported the cases. So one of an important statistic that we would need to follow up is of those women that reported, how many of these cases are investigated properly and how many of these cases basically get a conviction. And the burden in the criminal justice system of just having enough personnel to investigate these cases adequately.
Yeah.
But I also listened to the Gauteng representative that was speaking while I was waiting for this conversation to suggest that education is of young people, particularly young women, of the dangers of sexual activity. It's actually victim blaming. It's actually saying it is the duty of 10-year-olds to 14-year-olds, 18-year-olds, however the numbers are, teenagers and actually young kids to prevent rape.
Yeah.
I have not heard anyone, first and foremost, except the CEO of Soul City, categorize it correctly that this is statutory rape. And in fact, even for me, statutory rape is mild. This is child abuse. We have not spoken in this pandemic how we are supporting families and children at a time when we closed schools to say what is the safety support that we can give children. We've had a number of churches and community halls that were closed where we could have probably had, in a very healthy way, have children be in places where we know that they could be safe. We have not heard of any of the ministers saying in our investigation, while it is teachers must report these cases or even nurses who are delivering these babies, this is what we have found out. And these are the men that we have brought to book. And so that's one thing. I also know that the department, both the Department of Health and the Department of Education, have closed programs like Soul Body Slabs that showed very conclusively that interventions like those in schools work. I know also that we have had parenting interventions that we have had to stop because they did not have funding. We also have had boys mentoring interventions that have not had funding.
Yeah.
So we are in a country, for me, that does not have a lack of answers, a lack of proven programs, a lack of activists, a lack of NGOs on the ground doing this work. We are sitting with a leadership that I don't know what it is waiting to happen in order for it to address these issues.
Yeah.
And I can tell you now
You've raised a whole lot of practical things that aren't happening. Another one we know is that the safe houses for women just aren't there. Where do they go to escape their abusers who will come and find them? You need those safe houses. Government has admitted there's a problem there. Is this government just failing women? Because we have sometimes rape and then sometimes murder. And now what do we do? How do we express outrage around yet another woman murdered? This youngster at Fort Hare University, her body dismembered. What do we do as society now?
Well, I mean, I think it is very interesting in this country that women are actually the majority voters, and they are the majority of those that are registered to vote. I think it's about time that we ask ourselves whether or not we have in government a political ruling party that has the interest of women at the helm. We have also seen how institutions, Chapter 9 institutions like the Commission for Gender Equality at the moment is riddled with a lot of irregularities and a number of very worrying allegations against how it is run. And that also points to the oversight of the portfolio committee in the way that it is, interfering in the running of the Commission for Gender Equality. All of those things say one thing. It says that the women of South Africa are alone. But it is going to be the women of South Africa who are going to stand up and actually ask this government to count. We are going to local government elections. And I think what we need to be asking this government is what it is, all political parties that are going to be contesting elections, is what it is that they are basically going to bring about in order to have at a very, ward level, street level, what are the interventions that they are going to bring about that are going to ensure that the lives of women and children are protected, and that perpetrators of rape, child abuse are brought to book.
We have to end it there. Thank you for I guess just expressing your disbelief. Gender activist and CEO of Tekano Atlantic Fellowship Health Equity South Africa, Lebo Ramafoko. Let's take a look